What's up, guys? So we're back on another video of the Impreza. So today might be a little bit of a here and there video. I'm not really sure what exactly we're going to be doing today. I know we're going to be getting the firewall stuff done. I want to try and get the wiring harness all not repaired but cleaned up, reinstalled, and I kind of want to get the whole HVAC system installed as well. So pretty much just the dash beam will need to go in, and then after that the dash will be ready to go in. So I really want to try and get that all out of the way before I start doing the brakes. But since that we are going to be doing the firewall, we are going to be doing a little bit of the brakes, a little bit of the brake lines, and then pretty much at the same time trying to get the firewall all finalized, as well as the interior portion, I guess, of the firewall. So I've already got a jump start in today. So what I've done so far is I've gotten the brake booster, my new brake booster installed, and then the clutch master and slave are now bolted into place. So that means that I got the pedal assemblies installed as well. So the pedals are all ugly right now, don't pay attention to that, but all that is now installed. There's a couple other things I need to clean up in the interior, but pedals are all installed. I was going to install the throttle cable, but I figured that's just going to be, just hanging in the engine bay, so I'll wait until we're pretty much ready to put the engine in. Also, just off camera, when I first got here, I threw on the Cusco front radiator support brace, along with the JDM bumper beam. So now I'm going to get the new master cylinder. I'm going to bench bleed that, and then I'm going to break out the chase bay brake line kit and then see how I'm going to route it, along with trying to get it to attach to this right here. So let me go grab the master, grab the brake lines, and then we'll get started. Alright, so I bench bled the master. Now I just have the plugs in there just so it doesn't start leaking. I got the chase bay's proportioning valve just on here loose. Oh, you can't even see it. Just on here loose for now, just because I got to get these lines on. So the downside to chase bay is that they don't include any instructions, but these brake lines are straightforward enough that this short one just goes from the side of the master over here, and it just loops over and connects to this point, because you can see right here it says in, and then the other one on the right side says out. So I don't know why they don't have it the other way around, in and out, but so there's that. And then this one already has this like split off piece on it, so that means that it goes to the two brake lines that are right here that go to the rear. So then, since that is a rear one, this controls the rear, so it'll go on the inside port right here, and then somehow either loop it around or go underneath and come over, and I'm going to mount it to one of these threaded holes over here, and I'm going to have it go against the firewall. I have some hardware, I don't know where they are, and some P-clamps to attach it up there to make it nice and clean. And then the ones after that, the other long one, this side of it, because obviously it needs to go to the master. This side of it will go to the master. This side that has like the regular brake line fitting on it will go down to the wheel well, and since this one's super long, that means it goes to the passenger side. And then I have this one right here that's shorter, with the actual banjo bolt on it, with the extra port for right here, and that will go down to this wheel well right here. So I think what I'm going to do now is, before putting these on, I'm going to install all of the brakes, so then I can get the calipers on, get the brake lines on, and then start doing the master brake lines up here, because I can't really do any of this stuff and attach it to here without the reservoir leaking, and then it'll get filled with air, and then I have to do the bench bleeding again. So I'm going to stop from doing firewall stuff, do the brakes, just so I can get all the brake lines done. Alright, so I just got the rotors, calipers, all the pads situated, and the front little, the brake hoses that go in the front. I just did both sides. This side you might be able to see the brake hose a little bit better. So it goes into this bracket. So now when I do the engine bay lines, it comes from the bottom, comes up through here. Brake calipers are on. I wanted to get them repowder coated a different color. I was thinking maybe just like a metallic silver, but ever since I got my new truck, my spending budget has been very, very low. So I just cleaned these up, and they still look pretty good. With the color that I'm going to do the outside, the color that the wheels are going to be, the gold is still going to look really good. And plus then it matches the gold theme that I'm kind of going for right now. Brake rotors, these are some Stop Tech drilled and slotted rotors. If you've seen some builds in the past that I've done brakes on, I do Stop Tech slotted rotors. Only reason why I'm going with drilled, I'm not a big fan of drilled rotors just because crap gets on the inside of these and just plugs them up. But the previous owner of the black, like the STI swapped coupe that I took all the parts from, actually had these that he never installed, along with a set of rears. I just needed to buy new rear pads, but then come to find out I found the rear pads that came with the car. But so I have the same matching set for the rear. I'm just going to run these for now, since that now I'm kind of on a budget with this thing. Since that these are brand new, might as well use them. Alright, so my camera's starting to run out of battery, so I did the rear brakes off camera, so I got the pads and everything in. So I had a problem with trying to do the parking brake shoes, so I didn't put the parking brake shoes in for now. I'm just doing this just so I can bleed the calipers, just bleed the whole braking system, and then afterwards I'll put the shoes in. But the issue that I had is that I don't have them around me anymore, but the piece that attaches to one of the brake shoes that attaches to the cable, I thought came on the new shoes. They don't. And the unfortunate part is that I scrapped the old brake shoes that have that little lever piece on it. So I'm going to have to see if I can source that either through Subaru or through maybe one of the other Imprezas that I have. I can just steal it off of that. But for now, no parking brake. I'm just going to be working on bleeding the calipers. So this side is done. And if we move over to this side is now together as well. Brake lines are tight, so I just need to go down, tighten the brake lines that are right over here, and then we'll work on the engine bay again. Alright, so I just installed all the brake lines against the firewall and the brake lines that go to either side of the front calipers. So I didn't get to time-lapse any of it or film any of it because once you take these plastic plugs out that are on the ground now, brake fluid just starts leaking everywhere, and I kind of just had a mad rush of routing brake lines and attaching them to the firewall and making sure all of the lines here are routed correctly and put in correctly, that I didn't have time to pick up the camera. I didn't want brake fluid leaking all over the freshly painted engine bay or all over the subframe. So now I'll just run you guys through everything that I did. Chase bays doesn't come with any instructions, so I kind of just had to figure this out while I went. But so I have the rear brake line, which is coming out of the master over on this side, comes down and loops over to the proportioning valve. Then the out over here comes over down under the master, under the booster, and I have it attached right over here underneath where the steering column comes out of. And what I've done is I have actually drilled and installed riv nuts in the firewall with some nice stainless steel Allen bolts. So this one comes over, comes up and around, over to this side, comes all the way over here, tucks against the frame, comes up to another one which actually uses an existing threaded insert, then it comes up to the split right here, which then goes to the rear brakes. Then I used another P-clamp right here, which then bolts to an existing 12mm threaded insert in the strut tower. I bent the brake lines away just so this splitter isn't contacting the tub. It's actually off of it. And then same with the P-clamps over here. For the next one was up here. This one, the splitter that comes off of for the front brakes. This one comes down and then runs down the frame over into the driver's side front brake. and then this one comes up and around the booster, and then comes down to over here, and then follows this one all the way over. I put 2 zip ties just to hold it in place because I needed it to tuck up to make the transmission go through, and then comes down and over to this side. But so that's it. So I thought this proportioning valve was pretty cool to see, instead of just like the factory one that just sits over here that there's no adjustment. This one now has some adjustment to it, which is cool. And I think it just all looks very neat and tidy. I think it looks pretty good. The this is a brand new brake booster. It's starting to be hidden by all the other stuff, obviously, but firewall's starting to clean up pretty good. I cleaned the master for the clutch, just to clean that up a little bit, to try and get it to match the new clean master for the brakes. So those are looking good. Now today is going to be, unfortunately, the not so fun part, which is cleaning up the harness and getting the blower motor and the heater box in to try and complete this firewall. Alright, so it's been a little while since I picked up the camera. I did a lot of, well, out on the bench, I did a lot of wire cleaning up. There was a couple things over on this side in the driver footwell that I didn't need anymore. Along with, I needed to repair the HVAC control harness, and then I cleaned up and wired in my new radio harness. So I really wish that the factory harness wasn't cut where the connector was, because I had an adapter harness that I was going to use, but it was unfortunately cut, so I didn't have the connector, so I just had to wire it in just like the previous owner did. So that's not really that big of a deal, but it would have been cleaner if I just had a nice connector. Other than that, I got everything pretty much sorted out from where it goes. So you got ECU connectors down there, harness, and then that's passenger side harness with the HVAC stuff. This side looks like an absolute mess because there's a lot of connectors that aren't actually used. But then out in the engine bay, it looks like my firewall puked out a bunch of harness. So that'll be, once I get the HVAC boxes in, is when I'll start figuring out engine bay harness placement, and need to figure out where all that goes. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up the 2 boxes that I have for HVAC before I put it back in, and then I'll catch up with you guys after I get it in. Alright, so again, off camera, mostly because Matt and I were absolutely struggling, but I got the HVAC boxes in, and also the dash beam in, with most of the harness kind of situated in the areas that it needs to be. So I'm going to show you in the engine bay why I struggled, because apparently 95 to a 98 firewall is actually different. I would have never even guessed, but the HVAC box for the AC did not fit through the hole because the orientation wasn't right. So I unfortunately had to cut a larger hole in my firewall in order to get the AC lines to come out. So I plan on building just making a small plate that covers it, that I'll seal from the backside, and just probably riv nut it into place, just to clean up that area a little bit. I'm going to do that before the engine training go in, but that was pretty much the only hurdle, but that took like an hour to hour and a half to actually get it to fit right. Besides that, like I said, the dash beam is in, which also we struggled with because I kept the 95 mounting piece over here at first, and this is a smaller diameter than what the RS dash beam is, so I had to go out to the parts car quick and grab the correct bracket. And then the only other thing that I can see is that this dash, the centerpiece where the radio and all that stuff is, it's actually different from the transmission tunnel, so this is set back about an inch from where this is, so I just need to make a spacer that goes in between here, and there's got a longer bolt, and then that's that. So not big concerns with the dash bar. That side bolted in perfectly fine. Once I put this bracket on, this side bolted in fine. So now the interior is pretty much set for getting the ECU in, and then also the door harnesses have to be plugged into the extra harness that's over here. Same with that side. Tonight I'm going to be working on just getting the engine bay harness situated, and also getting the fuse box and front chassis harness situated so I can get most of those connectors actually connected. So just like you see right now, I have just the harnesses laid out, so I need to figure out what ones are meant for tranny and what ones are meant to kind of come over this way, come over this side. So I'm just going to go sort things out a little bit, and then once I get things kind of situated, I'll catch up with you guys again. Alright, so I've got the firewall harness pretty much sorted out. I have everything routed over to this side. I have the 2 grounds hooked up. This isn't going to be over here, obviously. This stuff is for engine, like intake manifold harness, and a couple other things that are going to stay over here. O2 sensor. Most of this will run this way. I'm just leaving it over there for now until the engine and tranny are in. So now I'm going to grab the front chassis harness, which is right there, put it on the bench just like I did with the dash harness. I'm gonna clean it up, and I'm just gonna, there's a couple things that I need to solder and stuff, like the headlight connectors. Looks like they repaired. They just use like generic butt connectors that aren't like weather tight or anything. So I'm just gonna fix those. Other than that, I'm just gonna clean things up, and then we're gonna see how we can mount that fuse box, and then we're gonna get the harness pushed into the interior of the car. Alright, so I've got the whole front chassis harness all cleaned up. Headlight connectors seem like, well, they've been replaced with, like, I don't know, some new ones, because these are prone to cracking and just falling apart pretty much. So the previous owner just had some like non-weather tight butt connectors on it, so I put some new ones that are weather tight. Eventually I'll get some loom, cover these up just so it looks all like this. Same with the other side. Here's the other one. So now I'm just going to bring all this over and start trying to fit it back into its spot, and try and start figuring out where to mount, or how to mount, the fuse box. Okay, so Matt helped me out. We located the harness where we're going to have it. There's some repairs and some extending that I need to do, but for the most part, this is how it's going to go. What we had to do is actually cut the electrical tape that holds this grommet onto the harness, and actually pull the harness about 2.5 inches or so to try and get a little bit extra length, because I wasn't able to get this fuse box, which you can't really see. I wasn't able to get the fuse box, which usually goes up in here, to sit far enough forward to have wheels clear. So obviously you can see connectors are disconnected, because what I realized is that this center one is corroded, and it actually pulled out of the harness. So I have a white Impreza at home that I'm just gonna cut this just cut the harness on, and then just re-solder a new connector with everything, because these other two are actually corroded as well. So just fix that up, and I'll just reattach these into the fuse box. What I ended up using was that bracket that it has on it, but I just put a riv nut through the frame and bolted it on. So right now it's still a little loose, but I'm going to build a bracket that comes up off of this mount and just goes up to this hole right here. So it'll just hold it up tight just like that. It won't be moving. Once that's all set, this alternator and AC harness is going to have to get extended probably about 6 to 8 inches, because now it's going to come up through this little opening and come up and around this way. But I'm not going to cut or splice any of that until the engine is in, just so I could get an exact length. Besides that, this is the parking light, which comes up to here. Fender light is obviously there. The fog light and the turn signal in the bumper, and headlight is right here. Then it runs along the frame behind here, which you can't really see. And then, of course, the clips for this are all broken, so I had to zip tie it in the spots, zip tie it up over here. And then we move over to this side, where since I'm not using ABS, I just have the harness in here, which I need to zip tie up out of the way, and then have this fender harness for the light over on this side just up out of the way as well. So everything is pretty much in its spot. It's in its final spot. Just a couple little buttoning up that I need to do. And then just some wire repair, like I said. But we got it tucked up in this little channel that's up here, because I actually put a wheel on and then put the fender on, and the ride height that the coilover is at is pretty much what it kind of looks like that's where it's going to be. So I couldn't just run it outside here, because any bump would probably hit it. The wheel was about like right here. Well, I should say the top of the tire was about right there. So once it compresses, once the weight of the car is on it, and with it like compressing, it might contact, and I don't want to risk it. So it's tucked up in there, nice and safe. Fuse box is far enough forward. When I put the fender on, the fender ends about here. So there's plenty of space where the fuse box is, that it won't be in contact with the wheel. And then once the bumper and the fender is on, I'm going to make a fender liner that covers and protects all of it. Alright, what's up guys? So this is obviously the same video for you guys, but for me it's a couple days later. I had to, well, the last thing that you guys just saw was the harness where it was broken for the fuse box. So I had to freeze my ass off at home because it's 12 degrees right now, and I also have a white parts car Impreza at home. So I took the fuse box apart, and I got this connector that I needed, which is right here, that has the center terminal that's pulled out and it's corroded. So I'm just going to cut it back to here and then solder on the new one. And then I also have, which I don't know, I can't remember if I said it or not, but I needed the fan harness connectors, not the ones that go on the harness itself. These are still good. I don't know where the other one is. The other one's over here somewhere. Here it is. Both of these are still good. It's the ones that are attached to the fans that actually, it's buried over there somewhere. But those actually, I guess, were contacting the exhaust and melted the connectors and melted the harness. So I just had to grab, luckily the connectors are the same from both. So I just had to steal these off of that car too. So what I'm going to do is that I currently, I don't know if you can hear in the background, but I have the heater going over there because it is like 35 degrees in the shop right now, which is why I'm wearing my giant snap-on jacket. So hopefully it warms up pretty soon. But so what I'm going to do is, just off camera, I'm just going to cut these off, solder these back on, and then I can finally get the fuse box, which is right here, buttoned up, and then I'll probably, after that, I'll make a bracket that holds this up to the fender well. Alright, so I got the connector resoldered on. I didn't film any of it, and I already put this back cover back on, but now the connectors are all good. And then off camera I also built this bracket. It's just a simple piece of aluminum that I just trimmed to make it nice and like, I don't know, finished looking, and then I just made a nice little bend on the vise to change it from one way to the other. And now fuse box is super tight. It's not moving anywhere. Obviously still waiting on the battery relocation kit so I can finish up all that stuff. The kit that I ended up buying, I originally wanted to put it in the center back there, but with the fuel tank right underneath, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'm probably just going to have it off to the side and utilize the frame rail that's right here. So battery would just be tucked away to the side. I'll still see if I can fit the interior around it. When I'm mounting the battery box is when I'll try and maybe fit the panel in, the side panel in first, and then see how I can fit the battery in there. And then also this harness that comes through the dash, you won't be able to see any of it, but it all goes behind here. I hooked all that up. I hooked it up into this fuse box right here. So now the harness is pretty much all set. The only stuff that's left is I have to put the steering column in and then hook up the ignition harness, which is all just right here. That side I need to finalize a little bit more. There's one more ground that needs to go on. But that side's almost done. I'm gonna mount the ECU also, and then all that's left is just I need to take a look at the door harnesses to see what actually plugs in to the dash harness from the doors. Other than that, everything coming back to the car on both sides is all plugged in. I'm not quite sure where this one goes. It is mounted, like it is supposed to be right here, so I'm not 100% sure what this goes to. It might actually maybe go to the seat. That might be a possibility. But, so, harness is like 95% sorted out. So that's good. I'm happy with that. That was kind of a nightmare that I just wanted to get over with. As you can see, I zip tied everything back so everything will not contact the wheels. And then same, you can see the fan harness around here all the way back to the headlight. I still haven't gotten any more loom yet, so I haven't been able to cover these. Also got to figure out where I'm going to put this ground, which I just realized that I have, so I got to figure out a spot for that. But you can see on either side of the frame rail I have the grounds. I cleaned up the, I stripped away the bed liner, and then I cleaned up the grounds themselves to mount them so they have good contact. And then the firewall, you can see the firewall is still how it was. That harness is still tucked away until I get the engine tranny in so I can figure out where it all goes. Alright, so I'm not really sure how long this video ended up being. Probably not too long because I didn't show much of the harness repair and also the dash harness installation because none of that was fun. I don't enjoy doing wiring, and especially this part of the build with the reassembly isn't something that's like fun to watch, I know. So I'm gonna try and keep this video a little short, so I'm gonna end it off there. Next episode, since now we have the wiring in, we can prep the engine and tranny to go in, which I have sitting over there, and hopefully it should be in that same video we end up putting them in. So that will be a major milestone to be able to get the engine and tranny back into this thing, since that major milestone was just getting it to how it is now, which is pretty much a rolling chassis. The next biggest thing will be getting the engine tranny in, because that means we are one step closer to getting this thing started.